finished my rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow. I have a problem though. I forgot from the last time how big the sleeves are, and last time I had enough yarn to be able to knit like t-shirt length sleeve, and so this is more of a slightly longer than cap sleeve, but it's just so big on my body. I do not like the way it looks. So I think what I'm gonna do, the overall look is great, but I just don't like these big floppy armholes because this is a lot of extra ease for my arms. So I think what I'm gonna do is rip this out, the ribbing, and reknit it and in the first round, I'm gonna do some decreases to get the stitch count down significantly, like probably not by half, but at least by a good quarter to a third, like maybe every third stitch or something like that. But I gotta do something because this is just terrible. It's not a look I like. It's fine, but it's not a look I like. But yeah, anyway, this is like what it looks like. Isn't it so pretty? I'm having one of those mornings where I am having trouble struggling to make sense. Hello and welcome. It is Sunday, March 10th morning. My name is Shannon and I'm coming to you from northern New Jersey, where I live and work and craft. I live along the Hudson River, directly across from New York City. And yeah, so you might see some clips of that. I think I took a little footage. I freaking love the view of the New York City harbor from my street. So I often film that. I hope you're not sick of it. It just never ceases to delight me. So yes, so this is my Knitter's Life series. I will intersperse some life stuff in with the knitting and spinning that I normally talk about. I'm gonna get you caught up on some of my works in progress and my finished objects. I am wearing a newly finished object, the Rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow. She recently updated the pattern, so some of my experience that I'm going to share with you might have been altered in her, like last week recently, might be addressed in her pattern update. I know she did some changing with some of the shaping. So I think, this is my second time making the Rumble Raglan. I did more rapid increases because when I looked at project pages of other knitters who made this pattern, the Raglan increases were done in that traditional, like every other row kind of style. But they ended up like being very angular, and I strength train, so I work out, I lift weights, so I have a pretty strong shoulder line, and I just knew that would drive me nuts. Like all this fabric here would be very tight on me, and you could see like I actually have some ease in there, which is lovely. I just knew it would pull across my chest and maybe not feel great. So I did more rapid increases here. I think I have notes in my first version, and for this version there aren't any notes. So the first version is like a red and pink and coral version that I made with I think I kind of hodged together, but the pattern is a 3-color, 3 speckles or indie dyed superwash yarns, fingering weight, 3 skeins, 3 different colors. You can also do a 2-color version if you'd rather, and then I think you need about a skein and a half of one color and a skein of the other color, more or less. Like, you should check out the yardage though if you're thinking about making this pattern. With this version, what I did was I used a this peach color is about 400 yards. I think it was like 380 skein, 380 yards of a handspun. And then I mixed in a bunch of mini skeins. Don't pay any mind to the label because it is apropos of nothing. So here's like the little dab of the handspun that I have left. Let me pull that out. And then all the mini skeins, mini skeins that I have left from making this. So yeah, so that is the handspun. It was this really lovely peach color with pops of turquoise, so it really worked out nicely. And then I did the mini skeins in a gradient, starting with the limiest green and then progressing through to turquoise and then finally to dark greens. The two dark green skeins are very similar, and I use them alternating in the waistband part of this sweater. And yeah, I ran out of the peach. I ran out of the handspun, so I ended up doing a full waistband in a mini skein color, and then I ended up doing like a different, like using up some of the turquoise yarn that I had for the cuff, and I ended up not adding any length to the sleeves. So this is literally like after putting the sleeves on hold, then just adding an inch or so of rib trim. All the ribbing is twisted one by one, half twisted, so one by one where you're twisting the knit stitch, but the purl stitch you're leaving as is. You saw the clip where I had a little bit of a floppy armhole situation. Like they were really flared on me. I don't think I showed you a picture of what they look like on me. And so I ended up like ripping that back out and re-knitting. I still haven't actually blocked this bit, so this may end up looking a little bit more smooth once I block it. So I ended up doing knit one, knit two together the whole round to just shrink the cuff in so it wasn't as flary. And it's still, I still have positive ease, so it's not grabbing my arm at all by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it covers my bra. So those are the two things. Like it wasn't covering my bra before because it was just too open. And I think the reason that it was that big is because I didn't make the recommended size. So Lydia recommends that you do a 10 inches of negative ease, which just was not anything that I thought I would wear. Great if you want to, but it's not for me. I wanted something that would give me some ease, at least an inch or two, which I ended up, I think I have I have a little ease around the bust. I was going to say, I think I ended up with nothing, no negative ease. So I actually made the size that she's wearing in the photo. So I made size 6, which for, our bust sizes are quite different, and so for her that was getting her the -10 or more, where for me it's giving me a little bit of positive ease. And I think that's why I ended up having a little bit of a struggle with the sleeves, because the sleeves were meant for a much bigger person. But also, like, designers design patterns for themselves, like they're using themselves as the model, the fit model, so their fit issues get interspersed into their pattern. So, like if you think about a big knitwear designer like Andrea Mowry, she's short-waisted and has skinny arms. So if your arms are not trim like hers, then you're gonna experience tight arms. And like I know whenever I knit her patterns, I usually like a little bit of extra, not a lot, like a handful of extra stitches. I'll usually just put them into the underarm to make the sleeve a little bit bigger. And then I always know I'm knitting it longer because I have a normal waist, shoulder to waist proportion. So, or I should say average. I shouldn't say normal. More average. I am more average. This is actually, so Martha's standardized fit form, and the vertical measurements match mine perfectly. The horizontal measurements I had to pad her out to get the bust to where it needed to be. But everything else, like where her shoulders are is where my shoulder is, and where her waist is where my waist is, and all of that. Where her underarm ends, my underarm ends. So I love having Martha around to put things on, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Trying to just think if there's anything else I could tell you about this. It was really fun and engaging. I did knit it as if it were a 2-color, so I let the mini skeins be 1 color, and then the hand dyed the handspun was another color in the mix. And before she did the updates anyway, I haven't looked at the new pattern, or the updated pattern. Before she did the updates, she didn't really give you a lot of direction on how to alternate the stitches. So what you're doing is you're knitting 2 of one color and then knitting 2 of the next color, and then you switch it up. You switch up like which 2 and which yarns and all of that. So that was a little confusing for me in terms of like trying to figure out where did I want to make those changes, how many rows did I want to knit, all of that. So, and I usually tend to go with, I like to do sort of the, like a fractal ratio, basically like 1:2 or 1:4, something like that, like something very prescribed when I'm doing repeat changes. So I think I have a picture I can put on screen, but if I'll try standing up, I might clip this out. But yeah, this is what it looks like. It is, it's kind of cropped. The picture that I have that I put on screen is me right now, wearing some bell bottoms with it. I don't think this is necessarily the best styling for it. I would probably put this with a skirt, rather than pants, or maybe, some different fitting pants, some pants that don't hug my legs as tightly as this one does, as these do. All right, so that is the Rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow. The mini skeins are just random from different makers, so I don't know if I have a lot to say about that. And the hand spun I made from fiber that I got from Olann Mills in Ireland. She's on hiatus, which I feel like I'm going to have to say every episode because I have a lot of her fiber/yarn that I'm using. So I have another FO. This is the Manhattan Hat by Tori Yu, and this is the child size for my granddaughter. I did a triple fold, and I knitted out a leftover yarn from a sweater that I made for her that you saw in the last episode. I think you saw it in the last episode, or maybe the episode before that. But yeah, I am gonna save this to take to her when I see her next, which will probably be sometime in late spring, early summer months. But it's so cute. Oh, and I held together, I should finish telling you about the pattern and the yarn. I held together a strand of suri alpaca and a strand of fingering weight. Both were deep stash, so the suri alpaca was from Lavender Lune, who's still making yarn, and the fingering weight was from GarnStories, who also still makes yarn. She's a German dyer. I collected a lot of GarnStories in like 2017, 18, around there. I joined a couple clubs and stuff, and that was a club color. Both of those were one of a kind. Well, actually, the suri alpaca from Lavender Lune might not have been. I just got lucky that they matched, that they went together. And yeah, anyway, such a cute, darling little hat. Let's talk about the knitting chicken mug. One of my favorites. Can't get the glare off of it. How's that? So cute. I got this from a potter who vended at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I didn't go. It was one of the years that it was all virtual. So maybe I think it was 2021. I don't think it was 2020, but it might have been 2020. I don't know. If I can find the potter's name, I'll put it in on screen. down below. Oh, so let's talk about, I was going to grab another whip, but let's talk about what Martha's wearing. Martha's wearing a whip. This is Scottish Check by Marianne Isager. The book is right over there. I showed it last time. It's The Knitting Life, A Knitting Life. A Knitting Life, yes. It's a book about her life, and her life as a knitwear designer and as a yarn company owner. So she's that Isager. Anyway, I have been in love with this pattern for a long, long time, and I have been dying to make it, and I finally made time to cast it on. This yarn I've had in my stash for quite some time. The yarn is, let me just grab my project bag. Over here we go. The yarn is from Green Mountain Spinnery, which is a cooperative spinning, worker-owned cooperative yarn mill up in Vermont. They've been around a long, long time. For a while, they were the only mill left in the region in the Northeast, but more have emerged. Anyway, it is their Lana base, and the colors are Blanco and Muy Oscuro, which I believe means very dark, and Blanco, of course, means white. The cool thing about this pattern is that it has you hold a strand of mohair with the white, or whatever you use for that one color, for your main color, determined by the rib, what you are making the rib with. So I really like it. I really love this concept of just holding mohair with one color and not the other when you're doing this colorwork pattern. So I'm just using some Ito Sensei, which is a 60/40 mohair silk in the colorway white. I just had some leftover. This is my 4th sweater that I've made using white mohair, so I have a lot of it in my stash left over from these other patterns, so or these other projects. So I'm happy to use it up. And if I end up running short, I don't think I will, but if I do, have another skein beyond this. If I do run short, I will purchase some more. It's just white, so it's not really going to be noticeable in terms of dye lot, I don't think. But yeah, so I put this on Martha this morning. It's the first time I've seen the fit and stuff. It is a mosaic stitch colorwork, so you're only knitting one color at a time. I modified the pattern to knit in the round because the Marianne laid it out so that you worked it in pieces and then seamed. I don't think seaming serves a purpose in a knit garment, so I always try to avoid seaming wherever possible. Sometimes it's necessary, of course, like when you're closing a toe on a sock, it's necessary generally, but yeah, so I modified it to knit in the round, and that meant it's bottom up, so that meant when I got to the armhole right here, I had to switch into knitting flat. So now I'm knitting the pattern flat, and then what'll happen with the sleeve is that it'll get cast on in the round. She actually has you cast it on flat from the shoulder and work down from, top down to the cuff. And I'm just going to do that work in the round instead of having to do it flat, because I've already started the work in the round. Yeah, so I was a little surprised at I expected there to be more ease, but I think it's just the rib pulling in. And I think when it blocks, this rib will sort of ease up and not draw in as much as it is. It's already, like, just from sitting on the form for a little while, it's already kind of loosened a bit. It's not grabbing as much as it was. I'm using as a guide, I made a very similar silhouette. Like this is just a boxy silhouette where it's just across the top, straight down the sides, and then bottom kind of thing. So I made another sweater in this silhouette last year, and I love the fit of that. So I'm using that spec from that pattern as a guide for this one. And I'm also going to be introducing shaping. So the Marianne's pattern, the back you just knit in a straight line. You don't put any shoulder shaping in. And the front, you kind of do a little bit of shaping for the neckline, but not very much. So I'm going to be looking at the other pattern and figuring out what I should be doing, because I definitely want a shoulder slope on the shoulder seam, and because it'll just fit better. Because if I knit it straight across, you can see, like, just looking at Martha, like there's a difference between this and this in terms of, like, if it's not straight across. So it's probably like 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches difference between here and here. If I just knit straight across the way the pattern's written, I'm going to end up with extra fabric in the underarm. Like, it's just going to kind of bunch up there because we are naturally shaped like that, most of us. So if I was a smaller size, like a smaller person, it might not matter. Like if I was knitting this for a child, it probably wouldn't matter all that much, because the difference between here and here wouldn't be as much. Wouldn't be 1.5 inches. It would be like 3/4 or 1/2 inch or something. So yeah, so I guess it also depends on your size and also your shape. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little shoulder shaping. It shouldn't be too big a deal to do that, to introduce some of that. But yeah, I just love knitting this. This is so fun to knit. I mean, it's I shouldn't say it's fun. It's just super enjoyable. It's just like, I love, the rhythm of the mosaic. It's super easy to and easy to remember. And I don't like it as much going back and forth, like doing the reverse, but it is like, mosaics are designed to knit flat, generally speaking, so that when you're knitting on the right side, on the face side, that's when you're changing up what color goes where. And then when you're on the purl side, you're just kind of, what's black stays black, what's white stays white. And, speaking about this, and that's true of most mosaic, as I think all mosaic, as far as I know. So yeah, that is Scottish check. Love, love, love it. I was hoping I would be further along, but so be it. This is kind of how it's going. And I think it's, yeah, I should be, I always know once I get to the sleeves, it's very fast for me. Like, sleeves, knitting the first sleeve is a little slower. Then when I get to the second sleeve, I really just zoom through, because I'm not making decisions anymore, and I'm not counting rows so much, because I'm just following what I did on the other sleeve. So it's usually very fast. So I'm hoping I will get this to the point where I can at least wear it a couple times before it gets too warm. We're actually having, let's talk weather for a sec. We're having like a warm few days coming up in the week where it's going to be in the 60s, low 60s, but it's still going to be in the 40s at night. So yeah, 60s I can wear a sweater, just not a coat. No coat. Fine. All right. Let me talk to you about my other whips. Little update on the Milton sweater by Joji Locatelli. I've knit maybe like I've knit probably like 6 inches or so, I'd say. So I was probably like up here. Knit to there. I am knitting the Milton sweater by Joji Locatelli. It is a sweater that is sport weight, one sport weight strand with alternating rows with mohair. So 4 rows of a sport weight, 4 rows of mohair. You're seeing multicolors here because I am using some Handspun, some yarn that I spun last year. I got it in my 2022, December 2022 yarn fiber countdown from Green Goat Ranch. And the colorway, the color pack was called Beach Rainbow. I spun it up in rainbow order, and I ended up with a pretty significant amount of yardage. I want to say like 1,000 or 1,200 yards, so sweaters quantity. And yeah, so that's why you're seeing all the color changing happening. It is because of the way I spun the color pack from Green Goat Ranch. Because it's beach rainbow, there is a lot of stuff going on in each color range. So it's not a true rainbow. It's more like an abstract rainbow, a rainbow concept. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I just think this is going to be so gorgeous. It's a lot of similar colors to what I am wearing. So yeah, I still haven't decided exactly how long I'm going to make it. I'm going to try to figure it out as I go. So I told you about the Handspun. My mohair silk is from Bien Aimée, and if you've been here a few episodes, you'll know I bought this at Vogue Knitting Live. I spoke with Amy, showed her my swatch and my yarn, and she made some recommendations for color, and I actually dropped it down a notch over what she recommended. She recommended a bolder mohair, but I really wanted something soft that would kind of be a background player to the rest of what is happening in this yarn. There's the back. That's probably a good shot of how the rainbow is happening. So I just finished up the purple, and I don't know what's happening next. It looks like I'm going into some sort of coral color. I don't know. I made 3 skeins, and all 3 skeins followed the same structure in terms of the color layout. So this is the second ball. The first ball is not quite done. I used it for the color and for one of the fronts, and then I stopped, put that away, and decided I would use that for sleeves. And then I will knit as far as I can with this, and then see if I need more length, I will attach the next ball. So, but yeah, I just love it. I don't love knitting those mohair rows. They are a pain in the butt because the mohair is quite slippery. And yeah, it's not as fun. I have to pay a little bit closer attention to the stitching. But, you know, by the end of this, I'm going to be a pro. I'm going to be a pro knitting those mohair rows. I know it would be easier if I used wooden needles, but I don't really like wooden needles. I would rather just go slow in the mohair. It's not that I don't like them. They're a little grabby for the wool, so you either are having something that works well for your mohair or you're having something that works well for your wool. This works out for me for sure. All right, I have one more whip. I made quite a lot of progress on this sweater. I want to make sure I am saying the name right. It helps when I have it in front of me, so I'm just going to take a peek at that pattern. It is the Chiaro Scuro pullover. So I made it to the sleeve separation. Oh, by Carol Sunday. Sorry, Chiaro Scuro by Carol Sunday, which means, as I understand it, light dark. So you do a provisional neck cast on, which is why you're seeing all this rolling happening, and then you go then you go right into knitting short rows, the color work, and raglan increases, all from the second row. You're doing all of that. So it's quite intense and requires attention to get through that part. And then from there, you are just, after you get the short rows built, you are just knitting straight down. So you can see this section, this yellow section is mostly short rows. And then you're just knitting straight down until you get the raglan, until you have enough of armhole depth, and then go right into the body. So I'm about, I don't know, I'd say like an inch into the body. I was obsessively knitting this. This is like so fun to knit. I am using all Spincycle yarns, all mostly single skeins of Spincycle that I had on hand from purchasing some mystery skein packages from them in years past. And you know, so you can get them at a discount. Sometimes they're seconds and stuff like that. So I had collected probably 10 individual single skeins of their yarn, and this just seemed like the perfect project to use those up and get them, you know, knit into a sweater. So Carol gives you some really detailed instructions about how to knit this sweater. She knit one version using 17 or 18 different colors, like mini skeins, I suppose. One of the colors, she does give the yardage per color. If you follow her layout of how to do those colors, she gives you very detailed instructions about that. Then she did another version of this sweater using Spincycle Ghost Ranch, only Ghost Ranch. And she gives you pretty detailed instructions about how she achieved that sweater as well. For mine, what I have learned as I've gone through these, you know, the color changes and stuff, is that my skeins are changing color pretty quickly. So just naturally, like this one, for example, it's starting with orange, but it goes quickly to yellow and then to gray. I realized that I didn't need to follow where she changes colors. Like I probably just, and she probably says this in her Spincycle, and maybe I just didn't pay close attention to it, but it makes more sense to just like change color when it seems like it's time. Like after a half of a color repeat or so, if the yarn isn't naturally changing color, if it seems like there's a long stretch of one color, to change colors. So I am using a whole bunch of, you know, dribs and drabs of colors that I have on hand. And what she tells you to do, and I talked about this last time, she tells you to take your full skein and break it up, like break it into two parts or 3 parts, just based on the colors. So then you have opportunity to like pull from the center or pull from the side, and you know, get a good balance of color throughout. And one of the things I can see already from her version to mine, like mine, it has a lot going on with color, and I'm okay with that, but I can see the value of using one shade, one color of Spincycle throughout, because you get a more cohesive sweater in terms of the colors. So this just has a lot of colors going on in it. Although surprisingly, as I'm sort of like pawing through the bag, let me show you so you can get an idea of what I'm dealing with. So as I'm like kind of digging around for what's the next color I want to add, I'm finding that there's a lot of these skeins have yellow and a lot of these skeins have gray. And so I'm kind of interspersing those gray moments throughout. Like there's some right here, right in this section here. There was some a little bit up here. And then the yellow I'm using, you know, as needed. But so far, like, I haven't really gotten into the dark colors. I do have some nice, beautiful, deep tones in my bag, but they're kind of towards the bottom. But I still have quite a ways to go. I mean, I'm literally like right here. So I have all of this section here to knit before I get to the bottom of this sweater. And then there's the sleeves to do too. So I do need to be aware of leaving some for that. But this is just so fun. It's so addictive. It's really addictive knit. And you know, I think I was a little worried about the wide neck. I'm still not sure I love it. I'm not going to know until I get this on needles, and I'm able to, you know, she has you do, I think, a little tiny jersey roll, like kind of a little roll neckband. I might do a 1x1 rib or whatever the ribbing is on these on the sweater. I don't know if it's 1x1 or 2x2. I can't remember. So I might just do ribbing and try to draw it in a little bit, because I'm generally not a fan of open neck, wide neck sweaters. I like wide neck t-shirts, but I don't really love wide neck sweaters. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I could tell you. It is, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. It's so interesting too, like when I was knitting it and I introduced this green color down here, this like blue green, I only had one skein that had that color in it. So this is the only shot of that color. There will be colors that will be similar in the sweater, but not that exact color. And when I knit it in and then kept knitting, I was like, I don't know if I like it. But now that I set this aside for several days to work on other stuff, and now that I've pulled it out and I'm showing it to you, I think it looks great. Like, I was a little worried. I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know. But actually, it looks pretty cool. And I also was questioning whether I put this dark red in too soon, but it looks fine. And there's going to be more. There's a lot more of this dark red that'll come up in down below. You know, also, it's, if you were to make this yourself, you could choose to do whatever you like. You don't have to do the light to dark scheme that Carol laid out, but which, you know, I don't know if I'm really doing that necessarily. I guess I am. And you could kind of mix up the colors however you like. Like you could make like a stripe repeat where you're doing like yellows, greens, blues, yellows, greens, blues, and then just do that all the way through the whole sweater if you wanted. But it's really fun. It's a fun knit, and honestly, it's hard to put down once I pick it up. I really don't want to work on anything else. So because of that, I don't have any new cast-ons. That's it. So until I get one of these off, I'm not going to cast on my next sweater or two. I usually don't plan far out my projects. When I know I'm wrapping up one, I'll sort of start thinking about the next one. But right now, I don't know why. I think because I really wasn't feeling well in January. Most of January, I was pretty sick. I spent a lot of time project planning. So I have swatched and set aside three more sweater projects. Yeah, I hope I don't lose the motivation to work on those sweaters. One of them I know, like that, it's my absolute next piece. It'll be the Sunshine on My Shoulders, which I talked about 2 episodes back, because I had purchased yarn at Vogue Knitting Live. So that is swatched and ready to go. So that'll be the next one I'll cast on. But that's a bottom-up sweater, so I really want to finish this bottom-up sweater before I put another bottom-up on my needles. So maybe later this week. Who knows? Depending on, or later. I'm saying later this week because I'm on vacation this week. Like, this is the second day of a staycation that I'm having because it is my university's spring break. I work at a big university nearby, and yeah, so excited. I haven't really had a good staycation in over a year, probably longer. Or I can just decompress. And generally, like during spring break, I'm still teaching, so there's a lot of grading and stuff to do, and I do have a certain amount of grading to do, but I have a plan to have it done by Tuesday, so I can really have like 5 full days of like not worrying about classes or students or anything. So I'm happy about that. I'm hoping to get into New York and see some art shows and stuff, and just like be in the vacation zone. So I have some spinning to talk to you about. I made some time to finish up a spin that I started. I don't even know how long ago because I never put the start date in, but I made myself finish it. I had basically spun one skein of it, this one right here, and I had enough for 4 skeins, so I have now finished all 4 skeins. So this is the 4th one that I haven't wrapped up yet. This is, I'm gonna just show you the unwrapped one, the unskeined one, the Hank. This is from John Urban Textiles. They called it Down the Allotment. They do in summer, like in June, around June, I think, they do, well, they call it like a mill tour or something like that. So if you live near John Urban or it's not too far to go, you can go on site that day or that weekend, and there's like all kinds of events and things. But they also do an online promotion of, you know, one run or like one of a kind kind of stuff. So I purchased this fleece. It is 33% merino, 33% BFL, and 33% Jacob, and it comes like, it's designed so that when you spin it, you would get like a heather. It is primarily black, and it has streaks of blue, green, and pink in it. I spun it from the fold to get a little bit less heather and more emphasis on those individual colors. It was interesting, after I finished, so this is the first skein I did, and I was not as effective. Like this one, you can see it's a little more heathered, I think, than some of the later skeins. Like when I gained more experience spinning from the fold, and I was able to create those color separations a little bit better than I did on the first one. So I think you can clearly see that, how this one is more heathered than this one. But I ended up with about 850 yards of a pretty nice DK weight yarn. So I don't have a plan for it, although I've been thinking about gift knitting again, because I like to knit for my children and their partners, and my granddaughter, for Christmas gifts. So I've made socks for them the last couple years. So I thought I would maybe try making a cowl, and because Andrea Mowry's Traveler cowl is actually designed for handspun, I thought I might make those, at least for the boys that live here and their partners that live here in this region. So my other son, my oldest son, and my granddaughter and daughter-in-law live in Texas, in El Paso, and it does get chilly there, and especially in the evenings. And my daughter-in-law is a nurse, a nighttime nurse, so she is leaving the house in the evening and then coming home in the early morning when it's quite cold. So she might appreciate it for sure. So I'm thinking about that, and I actually think this is enough for 2, so I could make a matching set for my emo kids, for my emo son and his wife. So I thought that would be cute to they like matching each other, as they end up stealing each other's things if you don't do that. So and give them each one, because I think they would really love these colors. So that is what I'm thinking I will do. Now that I have the little hat off the needles, I do need a small project. I like to have a small project that I can easily cart to and from work or to the store if I'm going to the doctor's or whatever, if I'm out and about, like a little travel project that can easily come with me, and I can work on, whenever I get some downtime. So that is my thought for that. We'll see what I come up with. I did start another knitting project, or another spinning project, which I'm going to just show you my prep. I did a little prep for it, so I'm going to show you that prep now. I bought this mystery bag of 250 grams of fiber, and I think you could pick a category like bright or whatever. I don't remember what I picked, but anyway, I was just going through and pulling it out to see what I had so I could see if I could plan a project. And basically everything is just these like short pieces. So, which is fine. I was just surprised. I guess I thought I was gonna get like, excuse the cat toys. I guess I thought I was gonna get like big braids. So everything is supposed to be, of course, wool with some bits of silk, and actually this kind of feels like there's nylon in it, but you know, it's mostly wool. So yeah, that kind of changes what I was thinking I would do. I understand, like I watched Andrea Mowry's spinning videos, like where she talks about her spinning, and she has worked with these mystery packs before, and now I understand why she separated things by color, so like pinks and blues, and then kind of divided them, because I thought in the bag was like, I don't know, 3 or 4, you know, strips of roving. So yeah, I can see the advantage, or the strategy, I guess is a better word, of dividing some of the small strips in pink, and then kind of pink, blue, like pink and other colors, I think, with this batch, because I have a bunch that are like pink, definitely pink, and then a bunch that are like other colors, you know? So I think that might be the way to go. And then from there, figure out the skeins. I think I'm gonna go for 3 skeins, so everything will get divided into 3s. And yeah, I'll start spinning like a good old combo spin, where you're spinning, you know, 1 or more fibers that are the same. But you know, like these, even though these are just pieces of braids, they're really thick. Like this is way more fiber than I like to hold when I'm spinning. So this strip alone could be divided at least in 2, if not in thirds, or maybe even quarters for spinning purposes. So yeah, I'll share with you what happens. I have a little spinning project that's been on hold for a while that I'm going to try to get to before I do this. So you may not see this video for a little bit. Ratio. So what I'm going to do right now is divide and weigh each strip. Divide them as evenly as possible, and then gather enough fiber so that I can make 2 skeins. The total weight is 250 grams. So it'd be 125 gram, 225 gram skeins, which is about as big as my spinning wheel can handle. But I think that'll be better for me than doing 3 skeins that are like 75 grams or so. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do next. And yeah. So I did in fact start it, and it's on the bobbin, just very, very little though, not enough to show, but I just thought it might be fun to see this more up close if you didn't get a closer look. And what I realized after I filmed all of that, and I had said I was going to do fractal, I'm not going to do fractal. I'm just going to randomly select whatever fleece is next and just spin each piece end to end. I mean, this is such a small little piece. So, and it'll be varied enough. I think it'll be really beautiful yarn. So we'll see what that ends up being. I ended up with about enough for 2 skeins, and it's spinning pretty fine, so I should end up with fingering weight for that with that yarn. So I should have somewhere in that 700 to 800 yard zone in terms of the yardage for that spinning project. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, that'll be too thin if I want to make a cowl, but it's probably a good amount of yardage for a colorwork something, or something that I pair up with a little bit of another color. Something along those lines. Because I know, like, I think some, like, especially if you're new to knitting, maybe you don't quite understand how much yardage, or if you're new to spinning, when I'm spinning, I'm always thinking about what I need in terms of what I would need for commercial yarn. So I know for myself, if it's a fingering weight sweater, I can probably get a fingering weight sweater done in about 1,000 yards. So if I can hit 1,000, I'm there. If I'm doing color work, I don't need as much, because the second color, even if it's in the yoke, is taking space, and you're not using all that yardage. You're not using 1,000 now, you're using like 800. So when I talk about that, that's where I'm drawing that information from. And then I know with DK, I probably need somewhere in the 1,000 to 1,200 range of yarn, and in worsted, same amount of yardage. But that, when you're spinning, to make that amount of yardage so this was 400 grams, for example. This was 400 grams, which if I had spun this fingering weight, I would have ended up with 1,600 yards, which would have been enough for like a sweater and almost a second one. But because it's DK, I only ended up with 850 yards, so I probably needed another 100 grams if I wanted to make a sweater's quantity with this. And I always find, like with John Arbon's fiber, I don't ever spin it very thin, and I think it's just probably because it's usually very grabby. It's non-superwash, and I think the fleece is grabby, and it probably just grabs more strands. So I tend to spin it. The thinnest I spin it has been sport weight, and that was why I bought 400 yards. But the other thing, or 400 grams rather, but the other thing about spinning, and I don't know if you're a spinner too, what I've noticed is that, I couldn't finish this before because it was so freaking boring. Like, it's just kind of boring to look at, and to spin a sweater's quantity can be rather tedious if you're doing something that's rather flat color wise. Like this hedgehog fiber is quite colorful and fun, and it'll be a fun, I'll spin it and I won't even feel the drag of time while I'm spinning that. But a more flat, like, I have mad respect for people who just spin a solid color and go from that to another solid color. It's a little tedious for me. I pulled out some fleece from a spin that I did a couple years ago, and it's just this flat reddish brown. It's Pullworth. It's beautiful yarn, but it's really boring to spin. And I bought enough to make a sweater. I made a sweater out of it, and I still had leftover fleece. But I put that sweater on the other day, and I realized that it's really a little too short for me. Like, I must have made it, maybe I was making it quickly, or maybe I was just thinking about, but I find myself tugging at the back mostly, because it kind of hikes up in the back. So I'm going to lengthen it. So I pulled out that fleece so that I could spin more yarn if I need it, because I only have about 80 yards left of the yarn from that spin. So my little guy is hanging out right now. I can't show you what he's doing. It's really funny. Actually, here. There he is. Hanging out. What are you doing? Can you look at the camera? It's gonna get you. He's always around. He's always around in the background or whatever. Yeah, so train went off the track. Sorry. I don't know what I was going to say. Anyway, I am really looking forward to having this time off, and I hope that I can make some progress on some of and just like let my creative mind just think about things and dream a little bit and move forward on some projects. And I will leave you with my clips on making bread, and I'm sure there'll be some cat shenanigans, because there's always cat shenanigans in the mix here. So take care. Bye. I'm making coffee bread with coffee in it, sourdough bread with coffee in it. So this is the I'm also making dinner, so I have some stuff set up for dinner as well. Yeah, so this is the dough ready to go in the refrigerator overnight. So I mixed it earlier. It's been rising. It's gonna go in the fridge overnight to get sour. That's how sourdough gets its sour taste, by letting it sit, but not rise anymore. So I will be baking it in the morning. I'll show you more later. Okay, I'm going to roll this out into a square that will then be rolled up and put in here. When it's rolled flat, I'm going to put this mixture here. This is, it's such a weird mixture, but believe me, it works. It's brown sugar, cinnamon, and ground coffee grounds from the coffee I made this morning. Yeah, this is like the third time I've made this bread. This is the recipe right here by Pan de Coffee Bread by Brian Ford from this book, New World Sourdough. Brian Ford. He has a Instagram account too if you're into sourdough and you haven't heard of him. He's worth a follow. So yeah, you put the topping on top of the bread, but also inside in like a coil. So I'll show you that. All right, I kind of went more for a rectangle than a square because it has to fit in the tin. I have my little helper here. So I saved some of this for the top. And what I'm gonna do now is roll this up and put it in here. And I don't remember if I put the topping on now, but this will, after it's rolled and sat in here, it will rise for a while. And then it'll rise for, I think, 3 hours. And then I bake it. So it'll be just in time for my lunch, for a nice treat. There it is, before the rise. So we have about 3 hours to wait for it to rise. And my kitchen's really warm, so it should get a nice rise. Here it is out of the oven. Be slicing into it soon. Here it is out of the tin. I sliced in with my razor, this little gadget. I sliced the top, but I guess I didn't slice enough because it split along the side, but that's okay. I also find that the recipe, he says to cook it for 35 minutes. It's not long enough. It needs to cook for 45 to 50 minutes. But I'm gonna cut into this and I'll show you. I took a bite, so I couldn't speak. But you can faintly see the roll. Maybe I can see it better. This is just on one end. I worried that I underbaked it, but I actually think might just be that it's hot. Oh my god, it tastes so good though. It's the coffee you put in about, I don't know, I'd say like 5 ounces of coffee, maybe a little less, 4 ounces. It's such a faint taste, so it's overwhelmingly sourdough, but it has like this subtle sort of flavor and sweetness in the background. So good. I'm gonna put butter on this. This is gonna be my tea time treat. Hope you enjoyed.